All right, I have 132, so I think we're going to go ahead and start. Welcome to the North Central IPM Center's Pests and Progress webinar. And today we have Jim Jasinski, and he'll be speaking from Bees to Beans, a 5-part review of the OSU IPM program. I am Lene Jess, and I'm one of the co-directors for the North Central IPM Center. We're one of 4 regional IPM centers that are funded and supported by the USDA NIFA Crop Protection and Pest Management Regional Coordination Program, and our mission is to coordinate IPM across the region and between the regions. What I'm going to ask everybody, if you have questions as Jim speaks, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then we will ask all the questions at the end. And I want to introduce Jim. We have Jim Jasinski. He's with the Ohio State University. He's a professor and IPM coordinator, and I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away, Jim. Thank you.
All right, great, Lene. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all those folks that are on right now listening. It's a good thing that the webinar was scheduled for March 16 and not March 17. If it was March 17, I might be out celebrating the Irish side of my Polish heritage. So glad we're all here, made the sacrifice today. This opening screen is somewhat intentional. And you know what our program tends to cover are those functions that are sort of indoor, sort of classic teaching, workshops and conferences, those kinds of things. And then we do a lot of field days and evening meetings outdoors as well. So that's kind of represented by that second image. And then we have outputs. In this case, we create a stink bug identification card. We've done other materials over the years. And then we also have this sort of central repository of sort of how-to IPM videos listed on YouTube, which we'll talk about a bit later. All right, so for those of us who are geographically challenged, I am at times. I know where Michigan is, and I know where Ohio is, and everything else is sort of fuzzy to me. We're on the very eastern side of the North Central region. And so just to kind of give an idea, Columbus is right in the center of Ohio, and right now I'm in the southwest corner of Ohio. Ohio is interesting in that it's got about 11.7 million people in it, makes it the 7th largest populous state in the country as of the last census. So a lot of people, really punctuated by big cities and big open rural spaces. So we sort of have both ends of the spectrum in Ohio. 1 out of every 8 jobs is attributed to the ag or food sector. So there's a lot going on in terms of potential IPM decision-making and adoption. If we look at some specific areas, the agronomic area is probably the one that stands out the most. We're talking about corn and soybeans, almost 8.5 million acres a year for a farm gate value of about $4 billion. So that's definitely the 800-pound gorilla that is part of the economic background of Ohio. We also have a lot of specialty crops, fruits and vegetables, not a whole lot of any particular one. We're not known for our melons or our apples or our pumpkins or anything else, but we have a lot of small sort of minor crops, about 45,000 acres worth at a fairly high value of almost 200 million. So even though it's small, it's high value. Therefore, we have this diverse, stakeholder set. We've got sort of traditional growers and clientele. We've got urban clients. We've got everything in between. We deal with small businesses and industries, so it's really a lot of people that we're trying to satisfy in this IPM realm. I took over as the interim coordinator in 2012. I was named the full-time coordinator in 2013, so I've just passed my 10-year anniversary. So I've been at it for a little while. And our focus of this program is really agronomic crops, specialty crops, housing IPM, which is synonymous for bedbugs, pollinator health, and we also support the Diagnostic Clinic. So those are the 5 areas that our group works within. We've got currently 13 co-PIs on the project. The last 4 years, from 2017 to 2020, we had about 15. So we have a little bit of a shuffling of the deck there the last year or so. We've got people in the departments from the Bird, Polar and Climate Research Center, from the departments of entomology, extension, horticulture, crop science, and plant pathology, both state specialists and extension educators. In terms of our funding, It's really interesting. When I came on board in 1993, this is what the pie chart looked like. It was about 95% directed to agronomic, IPM, if you will. And the other 5% was just sort of catch-all miscellaneous, whatever you want it to be. Now, as we look at this last funding cycle of 17 through 20, you can see how diversified the pie has gotten. There's a little wedge there for the coordinator and the evaluation, but you see specialty crops is the biggest chunk, followed by agronomic, pollinator health, housing, and then the clinic as well. So again, trying to satisfy that diverse group of stakeholders, we had to sort of reallocate the resources. And as part of the way that we operate, we obviously make federal reports to NIFA about our progress, but we also do annual reports that we disperse to our stakeholders, our administration, to show sort of the impact of the program. And so you'll see this is the 2017 annual report. This is the 2018, the 2019, and the 2020. So within these 20 to 24 page documents, what we tried to do is highlight those things that our program has contributed to or is heavily involved in, and then make sure that everyone who is familiar with the IPM program sort of knows these different areas that we work in. So typically the report opens up, there's a greeting by myself, and it really tries to summarize what has happened this past year. You can tell by the image on the left, no, I'm not robbing a bank, but that's during COVID and everyone's all masked up all the time. So just trying to represent that. The picture on the right is really more about what's been more contemporary, field setting. We're out there talking about whatever bug or workshop that is. So, we just sort of give a little bit of background about the rest of the report. We then go into and highlight those 5 priority areas: agronomic, specialty crop, housing, pollinator health, diagnostics. Here you can see, it clearly tells you this is a pollinator health area. It gives you the title of that sort of focus of that little project. Usually we like to have a nice picture and a couple of paragraphs to describe what the program was, the project was, and if there's any evaluation or impact, that'll be in there as well. So it's sort of nice, to have it all kind of wrapped up and, designed well so that, it gives a good feeling for what the program has been up to the past couple of years, or the past year, actually. So part of that is the program personnel as well. So this is list year by year who's contributing to the program, who's officially in the IPM program, receiving funds, et cetera. Myself as a coordinator. In entomology, we have Denise Ellsworth and Mary Gardner. Those folks work in the pollinator health arena. Andy Michael and Kelly Tillman, those are agronomic IPM folks. Ben Phillip is also in the Department of Entomology. He's our bedbug specialist. And then Celeste works in the specialty crop arena. In plant pathology, we have Ann Dorrance, Pierce Paul. They are the agronomic pathologists for soybean and cereal crops. Joy Brzezinski is our state clinician, runs the Diagnostic Clinic. In extension, we have Brad Bergerford, Frank Becker, Amy Stone, and myself. We work in those areas, especially crops. Mimi Rose, we sort of have an adjunct sort of arm out and help her resource her pesticide safety program. And then Aaron Wilson is our connection to the Bird Polar Climate Center. So he's a real recent addition, an important addition to our group. And then in the Department of Horticulture and Crop Science, we have Laura Lindsay, who works on agronomic crops. So from there, I'm just going to kind of jump in and just highlight what I would say are some of the maybe more traditional programs that we do, and then talk about maybe something new in each of the areas. So I'm not going to try to cover every project that we've done since 2017, and now just try to hit the highlights of some of these. So in the pollinator health area, Denise Ellsworth has been very active in doing online webinars and courses. This, of course, is kind of a needed transition during the pandemic. All of these programs were held live, in office spaces or, theater settings, whatever, had great attendance. She took that program and turned it online and really had great, tremendous reception. So her programs are like Insect University, this Welcome Spring series, Bee Short course, and she would have thousands of people enrolled for each of these programs that she would hold during the spring and early summer. I mean, just phenomenal. So kind of, want to give her her dues for that. She also is responsible for this pollinator sort of demonstration habitat plot that gets spread around the state. Maybe 30 or 40 of these demonstration sites are chosen each year. We grow up native plants and other plants and distribute those to the location, a little bit of signage there. So it's really meant for just purely passive education, but it's really great that it points back to the program and brings a focus to pollinators, which we all know are kind of struggling these days. Then I'm going to move to kind of an innovative program that's run by Mary Gardner. It's I would call it a citizen science project. She calls it a youth community science program. It's Dandelion Detectives. It's about teaching kids a little bit of the scientific method. It's talking about, observation of pollinators in a yard and what that might do. It's sort of aimed at, maybe reducing some of the fertilizer and pesticide input into lawns to protect pollinators. The first couple of years were designed to build their curriculum. The last couple of years, they have between 50 and 100 students enroll kind of online, go through the program, and kind of enter into the evaluation. So kind of a neat program that Mary was in charge of there for a couple of years. Moving on to specialty crops. We have our traditional programs. We have hops in the state. It's kind of new for us, but it's still, pretty important in terms of a new emergent crop. We have roughly 70 farms and about 100 acres, not a tremendous amount, but again, high value. We do our, we have hops conferences, we have field days, all those kinds of things where we educate growers about the production of hops and the pest management of hops. We have our traditional pumpkin field day, and there's usually a handful of us involved. Celeste is involved in these, Celeste Welty. I'm involved, and usually one or two other specialists come in. That's something we've done for the past basically 20 some years. Again, all the pest management and new research in pumpkins gets displayed there. Sort of some newer things that we're kind of doing is this outreach to the Plain or Amish community. It's interesting that Pennsylvania has about 82,000 Amish people in that state, and Ohio is right behind with 78,000. So behind Pennsylvania, we have the largest Amish community in the country. Indiana has about 59,000. And so the entire education process there is different. They have a very different system of kind of network of information spread. And so Frank Becker is in that county, in Wayne County, and has the connection to the growers and has set up this really cool bulletin board that he posts information on. When the Amish come visit the auction site, they pick up the newsletter, they pick up the different bulletins, and therefore sort of get that education in addition with, crop walks and things like that. So it's really kind of a cool thing that's kind of unique to Ohio. And so we try to support that. And of course, we have spotted lanternfly in Ohio now, got here in 2020. This gentleman is holding a vial that contains what I believe is the second known spotted lanternfly adult ever captured in Ohio. In the background to the left, you see Amy Stone. She is in charge of our outreach program, does a great job. We do a lot of workshops and webinars where we talk about the identification life cycle, the management, those kinds of things. So unfortunately, invasive pests are still an issue in Ohio, and we try to deal with them as best as we can. And kind of, I would say, some cutting edge, newer things that we've been looking at. We've been looking at some 360 video and what that can bring. We've been looking at modeling different farms, in particular urban farms, where people that can't travel from one area to another can have the experience of being on the farm, looking around, kind of stepping through these different areas, seeing what different production systems look like in the urban ag world. And so, again, just kind of a neat thing that, the technology is there that we started to dabble in. And so it's just something that we're probably going to do more of, given the fact that it's not extremely difficult. And it really, I think, adds a lot of value to those folks that can't travel outside the region that they're currently in to see some sort of cutting edge technology in greenhouses and raised beds. Moving on to the agronomic world. Some of our standard, we run trap networks. This is the Western bean cutworm here. And basically, this is a newer pest that's in the northern, northwestern part of Ohio. It's in the northern, kind of northeastern part of Indiana, southern tiers of Michigan, kind of that little cross section. And it's a pretty severe pest on field corn and also sweet corn. And so we're, beginning to ramp up our monitoring and trying to get growers to recognize that this new pest is kind of in the area and needs to be thought of. And trapped for just like every other pest that they know about in corn for the past 20 years. So that program is kind of up and running and supported by the IPM program funds. And like every other state, I'm sure in the North Central, we have our own version of the corn college and the soybean school. But this one's sort of celebrating the fact we took it, virtually, took it online due to the pandemic. And, we learned a few things, some things I think we executed very well, some things we probably need to work on, but it's all the basic, weed science, horticultural science, entomology, plant pathology that's around these crops that the growers are getting sort of one-stop shopping, which I think is great. They also have done some very focused outreach work with this Asiatic garden beetle. They had a summit a couple of years ago where they had the grad student sort of leading the summit and contributing to the summit. Again, primarily pest in Northwest Ohio, but if you're in that area, it's very important to you. Kind of more applicable to the rest of the state, we have a small grains management workshop where we focus on barley production and wheat production and talk about primarily the plant pathology and the horticultural piece that goes behind that. So that's something that we like to do in the field, but during those, pandemic years, we couldn't, so that sort of went online as well. But yeah, we'd like to get out in the field and do these kinds of hands-on programs for the growers, and I think they really appreciate it. I think the most leading edge thing that the agronomic group is doing is we've integrated this sort of climate aspect. And so we're talking about how does climate impact pest management? And we're looking at the pest populations and how they might be changing over time. Aaron Wilson is leading that effort for us, primarily with the agronomic group, but doing some with the specialty crop group as well. And we're looking at these outbreaks of pests that we haven't really, traditionally seen before. Fall armyworm was big this past year. We've had some pretty big flights of corn earworm as the weather patterns change and we get these sort of different migratory patterns coming up from the south. We see Japanese beetles in more of an outbreak state. We see stink bugs really climbing in terms of their numbers. And we see alfalfa weevil really becoming more of a dominant pest than it's been in years gone by. So these are just kind of a snapshot of a few pests that as Ohio's climate begins to change, it becomes more adaptable to pests that we think of are traditionally pests further south of us. And this graphic on the right-hand side, I love this, the idea that we're mapping and we're trending in the area where sort of those yellowish, goldish highlights of Ohio, sort of moving our summer climate more toward a middle or southern Illinois by 2030, which isn't that far away, or getting right into what Missouri is right now in terms of our temperature about another 60 or 70 years. And our wintertime temperatures are warming up. So in a couple of years, we're kind of like, central Kentucky is right now. And in 60 years, we're going to be more like North Carolina winters. So that is definitely going to impact, what pests are here. Insect and disease and weeds can overwinter and can get a foothold. So this is a really important segment that we're trying to build out over the next couple of years. When we move on to housing, we have bedbug issues. Unfortunately, Ohio is one of the leading states in bedbugs. Yay, Ohio. And so we're forced to face the reality of, the basics, identification, management, both kind of in a commercial and residential setting. We actually had a retirement in our program. We brought a new person on to focus on this, and his focus was really more looking at bedbug impacts in schools. And so he created this really cool junior detective bedbug video, which if we had more time, I would show you. or you can look it up online. And so it's really just about basic information that, it's aimed at kids and sort of stigmatizing the concept of bed bugs and who could possibly have them. So Ben Phillip is doing a great job in this area, and look forward to more coming from him. And we rounded out with the Diagnostic Clinic, which has all the basic clinic functions. You see that graph on the right. We can divide out, all of the samples that we get and sort of categorize, where they come from. In Ohio, we have the central clinic that's just outside of Columbus proper, Reynoldsburg. They sort of are the overflow for what isn't sent directly to sort of the agronomic clinics up in Worcester, both insect and disease wise. So we kind of have a multi-pronged approach to the clinic here in Ohio that we support. And all those things that you see there on the left, just, diagnosing all different kinds of diseases and pests, that's just part of the clinic function. And some of the staff get out and do some teaching for us, which is great. So they have a special on educational program on growing healthy hostas. And so, hostas are a great ornamental plant, and people have lots of questions about them. And there's a handful of diseases that attack hostas. And so they get out and did some outreach there, which was great. And in terms of, cutting edge, I would say we're getting into more molecular identification of particularly pathogens. So instead of putting it in a moist chamber or, putting it on a plate and seeing, what bacteria multiply, doing PCR work where we can identify the pathogen based on its DNA or our DNA. So it's really kind of interesting that we're kind of advancing on that front. It's not just looking at the signs and the symptoms. It's more genetic based, which is really pretty interesting to me. And I think the last thing we're going to talk about is this IPM video library that we've amassed. And we've been doing this for a while. We started this library in 2013, and it's a comprisal of many sort of how-to videos on scouting, on management, on identification, and all different kinds of areas. So in total, we have 93 videos posted to this library. As of yesterday, there's roughly 120,000 views of these videos, comprising 22.3 thousand hours of viewing, which is a lot of viewing, I would say, for anyone. We don't have a ton of subscribers. 560 is not a great number. And I guess we could focus on bringing that up if we really wanted to. The areas that we tend to focus on this website, they're listed and we're called playlists, and essentially broken down into the topical areas of pumpkins, pumpkin production, pest management, brown marmorated stink bug, trapping identification, spotted wing Drosophila, trapping identification, hops production, apple production, general vegetable production and pest management, agronomic or field crop production and pest management. There's a diagnostics list, there's a home and garden list, there's a bedbug playlist, and an urban ag playlist as well. So we're fairly diversified in terms of the content that we're providing. And, it's kind of, I think, a way of the future for us, as the world trends toward more video consumption and maybe shies away from more in-person meetings due to time or, whatever, with these videos, we can reach out across and not only serve the people in Ohio, but serve the people outside of the borders of the state, which is, something you can't do at a field day in Southwest Ohio. Just whoever shows up, shows up. So it's kind of neat. And I see this area of our program growing in the next couple of years. And with that, I think that's a pretty good overview of what we have in terms of the program areas and just, kind of a thumbnail sketch of some of the projects that we work on in the OSU IPM program from the years of 2017 through 2020. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this point, and I guess we're going to take some questions.
Yes, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. We have a couple of questions from the attendees. The first one is, when you were talking about everybody that's included in your program, you didn't specifically note anybody that works in weed science or weeds area. Do you have somebody in that area?
Yes. There is nobody specifically who's working with us in the IPM program. There are a couple of folks that have lent their assistance to us, particularly Tony Dobbles, who is the prime technician for Mark Laux, who's an agronomy weed science person. But yeah, so both Mark Laux and Doug Doohan, they are very busy people in the weed science world, and they aren't able to make a full-time commitment to the IPM program. So we use them sparingly on projects, but they are not formally and officially listed with our IPM program.
Right, but they are doing programs in weed control in their own programs and.
Right. They're just not doing it for us. That's right.
Okay. And then what kind of feedback did you get on the 360-degree tours? And then did people like that way to see the plots? Are you going to continue that?
Yeah, the feedback was actually quite positive. It was sort of given in different programs over different years. So we'd have to probably narrow down the one to get exactly. But in general, you know, what's interesting about the pandemic that I think a lot of people have concluded is while our in-person programming is great and fun and what we're used to, it only serves the 18 people or the 27 people or the 46 people that are there. Once that program is over, it's done. A lot of times a limitation to getting to a program is distance. So we're kind of in the southwest corner of the state. We often have pumpkin producers, I'll use it as an example, up in the northeast corner of the state. They'll drive 3 and 4 hours down, come to a 2-hour pumpkin program, and then drive 3 and 4 hours back. You probably only are going to do that a couple times before you go, that's a lot of effort. But when we do these virtual meetings where the content is essentially replicated and simulated and available to them 24/7 at kind of the touch of a button, they really like that. They really pick up on that. And that really, you know, it makes your meeting go from 20, 30, 40 people to 500 people have seen this virtual field day, you know, so I think we can keep getting better at it. And once we understand really what it is that people want to see most, we can really tailor how we use the 360 video, you know, and kind of incorporate it with different aspects, not just the video, but informational pieces that we can put in terms of added text, added images, added video that really clarify the point that you might be seeing, like what are you really seeing here? What's the essence of the important message, take home message? So I do think we're going to keep doing more of that, especially in the urban ag area. I think we've got plans with one of the North Central urban ag working groups to kind of have a thrust in this area. And I personally see it happening for some very specific projects within the IPM program here at Ohio State.
That kind of leads into the next question that we had. So what were the biggest changes that you saw take place in your program due to COVID? And then which of those changes do you see that you'll continue?
I mean, the biggest change is probably the most obvious change, and that is you have a kind of a standing program or two that you would do in the field or you know, something like that. And because you couldn't meet, you had to make it virtual. And so for the longest time, we were trying to perfect how to make that experience better, you know, and I think that's where we're still learning, you know, to make it better. I still think we're kind of doing like a very traditional program, but doing it online, which is a little stiff. Sometimes it's not as interactive and engaging. And I think that's where we have to really incorporate some talent of other people that understand that media better than we do and just do a better job. You know, it's, yeah, the content is there, but, you know, is it engaging enough that after 4 or 5 hours of it, you don't, you know, walk away completely zombified. So I think we're getting better, but I think we have a long way to go in that regard.
All right, thank you, Jim. I have 2:01 on my clock, or 1:01 Central Time. So I think we'll finish up there, but I want to thank you again, Jim, for being our speaker this month. And our next webinar will be on Wednesday, April 20th, and that will be with Janet Knodel from the North Dakota State University. And she'll be speaking on EIP highlights for North Dakota. If anybody's interested in learning more about the North Central IPM Center, you can go to our website. It's just ncipmc.org. And there's a list on there of all the webinars that have taken place so far. You can see the recordings. And then you can also subscribe to our newsletter on there if you'd like to learn more about future webinars. So again, thank you for everybody attending, and thank you, Jim, for being our speaker. Have a great day.
Thank you.